Like most people, I started with the GlideCam HD4000 for handheld stabilization with cameras. I was happy to upgrade to the electronic versions that Zhiyun was making. I used the original for a while, but now I've recently updated to the Crane 2, and I had a week in Japan to shoot and test it, and here's some of that footage. I shot all of these clips with a Sony A7S II with a 16-35 f4 lens on the front and a Rode VideoMic Pro microphone on top. And I even had the extra weight of this quick release plate that Manfrotto makes just because this is the system that I use for all of my monopods and tripods. So I could even put this on top, have that rig, and this handheld gimbal could handle that extra weight. This thing can handle up to 7 pounds I've seen, and that's not really a problem with my Sony cameras. The difference though is if you have larger lenses and larger bodies like with Canon cameras, this is definitely an upgrade for capacity. You can hold much more on this. And with that larger capacity comes a larger gimbal. It's definitely thicker, just heavier, much more robust it seems. I got the gimbal with a kit and it came with this tripod, which was actually super helpful. You set it down all the time. I used to put a base plate at the bottom so I could do that. It's kind of nice just to be able to do that real quick and set it down. The carrying case that comes with the kit is quite large, but it holds everything. Comes with a lot of cables and straps and even this double grip, which I don't use because if I were to use it, it just kind of defeats the purpose of a single lightsaber grip small handheld rig. I would rather use a Ronin if I was going to use a double handle thing like this. And for this Japan trip, I didn't even bring this case. I just had the gimbal in a backpack or I was using it. I didn't really run into any issues with it being in the backpack except for this joystick pad can just come off very easily. So I actually lost that on the last day of my trip, but luckily, you know, you can get extras, which I did. So just be careful that this can come off. The sled is definitely an improvement over the original version, and it's even using the same plate as Manfrotto. So if you use something like this, you could just keep the base plate on your camera and just slide it right in. But like I said, I'm using a quick release plate, so I just put that on top and leave this alone. The 4 knob tightening joints just feel improved. You feel like you're not threading them, yet you're still like able to lock them in place, so that's good. So I was pleasantly surprised with the original version's battery life, and that's exactly the same with this version too. These are pretty big batteries, they're rechargeable, the charging unit comes with the kit. I only had to charge once during my entire week-long trip, which is excellent. I'm not sure if it's true for every case, but for my A7S II, I'd plug in this micro USB cable and the batteries in the gimbal would actually charge my camera while I was using it, so that's perfect. The first thing that everyone notices is this follow focus knob, and I wasn't able to use it with the A7S II because the original firmware was just for Canon DSLRs as far as controlling the camera when it's plugged in and using the focus for certain lenses, but I couldn't use any of that stuff with the Sony A7S II. One problem that I had with the original, and I still have with the Zhiyun Crane 2, is that to change the speed or any custom settings, like it tilts way too quick by default. So I always go into the app and change the settings so that that tilt is much slower. But you have to connect your device, you have to go into the app every single time that you want those settings to work, because every time you turn off your gimbal, it reverts back to default. So you have to keep connecting with this app if you want your custom settings, which is a pain. So is it worth it to upgrade from the original version to the Zhiyun Crane 2? I think it really depends on which camera you're using. If you are a Canon DSLR user, finally you have, you know, a handheld gimbal that can handle the payload of those larger and heavier cameras like the 5D Mark III, the 6D Mark II, 5D Mark IV, and plus you have camera control, so you can hit record, you can change settings, and even use the follow focus. So I think that's a no-brainer. If you're a Sony mirrorless camera user like I am, the upgrade isn't as important. until they get the firmware update so that we can control the camera and use everything that the Canon DSLR users can. I still like using handheld gimbals for projects. It's a really unique tool and something that you really have to practice. You can't just take it out of the box and expect perfect footage. There is a stance and a walk and a mindset to getting good gimbal shots. So those are my initial impressions after my first project with the Zhiyun Crane 2. It's not the fault of the company. The company is ready to go. Sony just has to make an update for its cameras to allow such controls like follow focus and exposure changing and recording, etc. So hopefully they do that. If they do, I will try to make a new video, but thank you so much for watching. See ya.